All righty, here we go. It is Sunday, July 30th. It's your old pal EMac, joined again by Fantasy Tips Matt. That would be Matt Belman out there in this Twitter sphere and the high stakes leagues. Matt, it has been like 2 weeks. What's been going on?
No, yeah, it's good to see you again. I went on vacation for a week and just so happened I was traveling Sunday to Sunday. So went on a little family trip to South Carolina. And traveling, there was no direct flight. So it was a connecting flight. It took a while to get there. So was unable to make the video, but I was missing you and I'm happy we're back.
Well, I'm good to be here with you as well. We've got 8 games today. I'm just looking to see. There was not any weather issues when I looked this morning, but we'll take another peek here. Of course, we were brought to you guys by BetMGM, so we will talk about them. Yeah, it looks like everything is good across the board. Always a chance for humidity showers in Atlanta this time of year. Maybe a little bit of afternoon rain there in Pittsburgh, but otherwise looks pretty solid. Nothing to really worry about there. 8 games on this featured slate. There's 4-game sub slate at 2 o'clock, and then there's a 4-game late slate today at 4 o'clock. And then you're going to get the Baltimore Orioles and New York Yankees on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. So we are ready to rock today. Let's get on into the fun here, Matt. Let's just jump into the analysis because, hey, why not? First game we have here is going to be that Philadelphia at Pittsburgh game. Christopher Sanchez, kind of an interesting option there. Lefty taking the mound, probably in line for 70 or 80 pitches would be my guess today. Anybody going against Pittsburgh is always a good play. Of course, Pittsburgh is running out all of their rookies with Henry Davis, Jared Triolo, Josh Palacios, Elover, Figueroa, and Nick Gonzalez. I think one of them is a second-year player, but combined they have about 250 major league at-bats against Southpaws. We're going to be targeting Pittsburgh a lot down the stretch. What do you got for us here? You've got the youngster in Christopher Sanchez. You've got the ancient one in Rich Hill. Couple of Southpaws. Take it away.
Yeah, no, I think your analysis was actually pretty spot on in that we definitely are looking to pick on Pittsburgh, pretty much whenever we can at this point with the lineup they're running out. Not that it's like the worst lineup in the world, but like you said, they're really, really young. So I like Sanchez here. I think he kind of belongs in a group with a couple other pitchers on this slate. Not the greatest arms today, so you're going to have slim pickings with your SP2 if you're looking to spend down, and I think Sanchez is certainly in the mix. Rich Hill is not, even though he's getting a little bit of love. Actually, they're getting similar ownership. Sanchez is about $1,000 more. Hill at $6,300. I mean, I get it, but I'd rather go to the Philly side here. I know it's hot in the Midwest. I'm sure it's really hot in Pittsburgh today. Hill is on his last leg, literally and figuratively. So I like Philly quite a bit here. I think you can use Pittsburgh bats as one-offs because they're so cheap. And like I said, it's not like they're the worst bats in the world. They're just really young. You mentioned Henry Davis. He's gotten off to a pretty good start. He's still only $3K. You got Andrew McCutchen, always been good against lefties. Connor Joe leading off. Like, I don't hate picking pieces of Pittsburgh, just like I don't hate Sanchez. If I were ranking the game, for me personally, it would probably be the Phillies, Sanchez, Pirates, Hill.
All right, let's continue on here. The next one's going to be a fun one. It is Atlanta. They have Colin Ray on the mound for the Brew Crew, the sacrificial lamb. You've got A.J. Smith-Shawver on the mound as well. Last we saw him before he got sent down to AAA Gannett, he gave up 5 home runs in his final 2 starts. We'll have to see what's going on, but I think that means Christian Yelich in play for a home run today. 5,400 on DraftKings. What do they think? He's part of the Atlanta Braves? Look at the Braves pricing. 6,600 for Acuna, 56 for Albies. Riley's at 63, Matt Olson at 64. Heck, even Sean Murphy at 57. Yahoo similarly priced these guys up. FanDuel's doing FanDuel things. But I like how they're making it tougher. It's really hard to get a 5-man Brave stack. It's easier to get a 4-man stack, but I like that they're making us work for it here because last I looked, it was a 6.5 implied run total. Yeah, still a 6.5 implied run total here for Atlanta against Colin Ray. Ray, the ancient, venerable veteran here, the sacrificial lamb. I think it's all things Atlanta today, at least for their offense. Do you want anything to do with either of these pitchers?
Definitely not Ray. Colin Ray. No, thank you there. Smith Shawver, I think is, in play, especially given our top pitchers tool, coming in middle of the pack there, 11.3% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, only 1.5% ownership. So like you compare that to like Tariq Skubal, who is much lower than I thought he'd be on the top pitchers tool. He's actually right behind Smith Shawver, getting 10 times the ownership. So I think Smith Shawver looks good as an ownership play. But like you said, it's all about the Braves offense here. Hard not to like them. They're really expensive. And especially on a slate like today, if you want to 5-man stack them, you got to spend way down at pitcher. And you might have one guy you like if you like Rich Hill or you like Smith Shawver, but good luck picking 2 of those guys and fading, all the SP1s here. It's not what I'm going to do. But it worked out last night for people who just sacrificed everything else and went to the Braves. Granted, like Marcell Ozuna was huge and he's not expensive. Rosario homered. So you can always pick out like the bottom of their lineup as well, just to get some pricing leverage there. I will say, though, like I think that the more affordable guys in the Brave stack are gonna start being much higher owned.
It's a good way to get exposure to the offensive environment. And as you mentioned, Ozuna, off the field stuff set aside, he's returned to form this year, looking pretty good recently. We had Ronald Acuna 50th stolen base last night, 25th home run, 75 combined. He's going to be like in the 40-70 club, maybe. That's impressive. It's rarefied air. He's 6,600 on DK, and I think you want to play him in your cash games every day.
Yeah, he's got the highest floor and highest ceiling of any player in baseball on any given day, just considering his stolen base upside to go along with the fact that he's an elite power hitter and an elite average hitter. He is, for my money, the best player in baseball outside of Ohtani.
Yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. So, we are acknowledging, we'd love to stack the Braves. There are going to be trade-offs, guys. It's tricky on DraftKings and Yahoo, where they've really boosted the prices, and that's something that we can make some other decisions around. But it's probably going to be at the expense of having Jesus Luzardo as your pitcher today. He's $11,000 on DraftKings and FanDuel. So there's going to be trade-offs, but I think today it's yet another day where I want to push the chips in with Atlanta. Will they get 11 runs again? Well, I don't think so, but I want to be there if they do.
And I'll say, just from like an ownership perspective, not playing Luzardo to play the Braves looks like a good move. Now, we'll see how the ownership actually plays out, but we have Luzardo coming in a little bit over-owned and the Braves under-owned, just like last night. And I will say the Braves were very low-owned last night, even in a great spot against the Heron. So maybe they'll be higher owned today, smaller slates, not quite half the size, but 8 games compared to 14, I believe, or 13 yesterday. So different situation. But the Braves look great again here. They're the best offense in baseball. They, just from a nostalgic point, they remind me a lot of like the 90s Indians, where they just rake.
All righty. Let's ask chat for a favor here. Please, I'm going to drop this the link to this tweet in chat. Apparently social media taking a nap today. Sleeping in on a Sunday. If you guys could retweet that, I would appreciate it. Let's get some more people in here. We've got almost 500. Last week, we were over 600 concurrent for most of the show. That is a lofty total in the middle of summer on a Sunday covering baseball. So we appreciate all of you for being here. You definitely make it so we can continue doing free content. I want to give you guys a quick chance to, or a reminder, the Stochastic Avatar contest. If you go to stochastic.com/avatar, you can download the Stochastic Avatar, upload that to your DFS site of choice, and then tweet us if you win first second, third. Got to be top 3, 10-way tie for first doesn't count. You got to finish first, second, or third overall. Any contest of 5,000 people or more, dollar buy-in does not matter, and we will get you 30 days of Stochastic Premium, but you got to send us a screenshot of your victory with that Stochastic avatar visible. For those of you who are not on Twitter or whatever we're calling it these days, you can always send that email into support with that screenshot. But again, this is a little marketing trade-off. We want the screenshot of the Stochastic logo, and we'll give you 30 days of Stochastic Premium. So check that out. How are you feeling about Christian Yelich today? 5,400. He's coming. I've capped all my hitters at 20%, and I've run the first half of my stacks. He's coming in and hitting that player cap at that price. I was a little surprised. Are you good? You good with that today?
Totally good with that. I mean, he's had a bit of a resurgence this year, especially lately, the second half of the season. He's not like the MVP type guy he was a couple of years ago.
And two-time batting champion. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. He's running a bit.
Forget about that.
Like, to be honest, he is exactly what I thought he is now when he came over from the Marlins. Like, He's good to very good, not great. He's very good, though, and he's in a great spot today. I mean, the thing about him is he looks great in a Brewer stack. He looks great in a one-off. So, yeah, I see no reason why he couldn't or shouldn't be one of the highest owned players on the slate. That said, there's a lot of outfielders that look good.
All righty. Ooh, we got a super chat here, and it's one I like, and we can both answer this one with a nice little approach because we only have 8 games today. It's a little less than what we've had the last few. We're going to have time to cover this. No real weather issues, and we do have all the lineups in. So this is from James Foster. He says, "Hey, can you guys give some cash game tips? I do best in 100-man tournaments." Or even the 5 and 25-cent multi-entries. I'm assuming that's like the 20 max, quarter, arcade, dime time, etc. But 50-50s are very hit or miss. So here's the thing. Here's how I approach it. So I used to always play 3-mans and cash games, and I got away from it for about 5-6 years. I'm back to it now. I'm not today because I'm on air up until lock, but I've been playing in the single entry on DraftKings, and usually the $25. If I think there's going to be a lot of overlap, and this gets into the strategy, I'll drop it down to the 5 or the 10. But I like to see what other people are doing and how they're approaching it. I get very angry when I have duplicated teams. So if I think there's going to be a lot of duplications, then that's where I go down in the buy-in. And then I play a little more aggressive to kind of get to your point. So I like having the 2 pitcher options here. So I usually figure out my top 2. I can tell where the field is generally going to be, usually the top 4 pitchers. Sometimes you're going to accept having someone like, I think Darvish was 20 or 75% owned last night in the $25 single entry double up on DK. But you could get your differentiation elsewhere, right? It's situations like that, or where there's mispricing at Coors Field, you'll get a lot of overlap. But what I like to do is play this like it's the best lineup I can put out there. So baseball is very different. I don't like cash games in basketball because it's 2v2. The projections are the same. It's not fun anymore. But baseball is going to be different because you're always going to have your last outfielder or something. So Acuna is going to be popular. There's usually Jose Ramirez is, and then the 2 best pitchers, and then you move on from there. But I play it a little bit more aggressively, where I'm not afraid to be different than the field in some of the things, and I treat it like it's a better chance of getting a min cash in a tournament. And when you're playing, that 25 or even the 10, that it starts to add up. You win, 4 of the 7 days during the week, and you've got a little bit of profit, right? So, and I can consistently do that with baseball. I can't in football. I can't in basketball, but I can in baseball. So I like the smaller fields, like you've said. This is where I'm going to hand the baton over to Matt, because he likes to play in the smaller field tournaments. But you can treat those 100-mans. Those are great on FanDuel. I love those, love their payout structure, because when you get a 1% outcome, you get paid like it. And it's great. And that 1% outcome in a large field tournament, you're going to maybe 2x, maybe 3x, because you need a 0.1% outcome, if not better, in those large field tournaments. So I prefer playing this. Yeah, I'm never going to get massively rich, but at the end of the year, I get 1099s from all the sites. So that's how I like to approach this. How do you approach, do you have any cash game tips? And similar, I think baseball is different than the other cash game things, because you're really definitely out your best lineup, I think. Right. Yeah.
Difference in baseball for me is it's so much less projectable than especially the NBA. So it sounds like you like that aspect more.
Yes.
I could see why people would like that aspect less, because in cash games, I think you want predictability. I don't play any cash games at all. So my advice would just be on like, who I would play. You talked about the guys like Darvish that are 75% owned. I mean, you want and need those guys in your cash game lineup. You talked about Acuna. He's a nice cash game staple pretty much every day. You want to ride the ownership because the ownership is usually the best plays.
Yep. And in baseball, it's going to be spread out more because even the most popular hitters, they get up to like 30%. In the cash games, you'll get the Acuna on half the field, the Jose Ramirez, etc. But then there'll be some mispriced guy batting fifth out of nowhere, fourth outfielder or something for $3,000. He'll be in a lot of lineups. But I also like targeting against bad pitchers. So I will take 2 or 3 players. I don't try to stack in cash games, but I like the correlation if it's going against a bad pitcher. So this is not the best example because of the pricing, but you get like a Colin Ray. Well, I want to attack him. We're going to pay for it. It makes it a little harder. But if you find a weaker pitcher, getting 2 or 3 players against him, maybe the 6 or 7 hitters, finding your some point per dollar guys, that's a viable way to do this. So that I really like cash games now for baseball, but I've given up on football. It's just not fun for me anymore. Because if you like the 2 weeks I finally gave up were the 2 TJ Hawkinson weeks where I didn't have him, and they were spread out by like a month or 5 weeks. And so like I just got my ass kicked. I won like 1% of my contests, or I returned 1% of my buy-in. Like, F that, I'm not doing this anymore. And then I talked myself into it, and it was that other TJ Hawkinson week, and I didn't play that week either. I'm just like, forget it, I'm done.
Yeah, I remember both those weeks. One of them must have been the home game against Seattle. I had a big week that week where they just went off. Both teams went off. Then the other one, was it I don't know if it was. No, it wasn't Thanksgiving.
No, but he had already been traded to Minnesota.
Okay, yeah. I remember though. Yes, I remember.
So anyway, yes, there we go. So there's our cash game stuff. But fun strategy. And again, I always espouse playing in those smaller field contests just because you get better payouts and they're more attainable. You're not going to win 5 figures, but you do it right, you're not going to redeposit. And that's what I prefer. Okay, back to 2 games in.
To be fair, just to your point, most people playing GPPs aren't winning 5 figures either. There's just the chance that you could.
Right. Yeah, you miss every shot you don't take. Okay, well, there you go. Yeah. But I'd rather make some. Jesus Luzardo breaking the models today. This is a phenomenal spot going against, say it with me, the Motor City Kitties.
I love it. I heard you say
what do you got here?
Vacation. I was on vacation and I listened and I chuckled inside and outside. Yes, I love it. And as far as Luzardo goes here, I mean, he's the best overall play on the slate in my mind. Now, like as Adam says a lot, it's baseball. Anything could happen. We've seen the top pitcher on the slate get roughed up a bunch, especially recently. Going back to Darvish's last start against Pittsburgh, where he got shelled. I mean, Luzardo isn't.
Nola last night, even.
Yeah, Nola last night, exactly. Even James Paxton wasn't great. We've seen it a lot recently. So I love Luzardo here. The spot is great. He's in good form right now. Amazing spot at home against Detroit. For me, he's a priority. I think I'm going to play 6 lineups today. He'll be in all 6. I'm prepared for Detroit to get to him a little bit, but it's not even just like how good Luzardo looks here. It's the fact how much better he looks than the field. There is no one else like on his level for me. Verlander is really good, but he's not as good as Luzardo right now. And the spot isn't nearly as good considering the Nationals don't really strike out. So I'm all in on Luzardo today. His strikeout upside is elite. The ownership's there. And if you play him, you really can't stack like the top 5 of the Braves. Even if you use like Yarborough at 5,300, you're going to really struggle to use the top 5 of the Braves. So I get it. I'm, kind of selling off the Braves to get to Luzardo. But for me, he's a priority with other offenses that I like.
Yeah, most definitely. I just well, I had a second here. I'm going to switch gears and then we'll go back to this game. But I just called up my cash game in that $25 double up. So like, here's a good example. I wanted to go against Patrick Corbin, right? And we had Coors Field on the slate, but I made a huge stand on Pete Alonso. Of course, he went 0 for 5, but I also took Alvarez, the rookie catcher. He was only 4.5% owned, and he hit a home run. That was a huge difference maker for me. And then I even cashed, even though I had Paxton. So I had half the field had Darvish, a quarter had Paxton.
And honestly, I was all in on Brandon Pfaadt, thinking that he was going to be like a low-owned guy. He wasn't low-owned at all. I mean, in the 555, he was 32% owned.
Yeah.
So he was higher owned than Nola and Paxton. So
it was such a point per dollar play that ended up happening.
I couldn't believe how high owned he was. When I saw that ownership, I said to myself, I don't care what happens. If I had known this ownership, I would have stacked Seattle. He was decent. I guess he had 70K points, but makes a guy like Paxton, who even though he wasn't good, who got 14, look a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was kind of interesting that throughout the day, I guess they had more time because I did it on the show with Adam yesterday morning. Is I wrote him up as a late slate play, and Adam's like, "No, don't limit yourself to the late slate. You should be playing him."
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, a couple other industry projections had him up there for point per dollar. So all of a sudden he was flying off the shelf because you could then stack the Braves, because you could then get the expensive Mets, and you could get the Dodgers. So all of a sudden, everybody going for those stacks ended up with Brandon Pfaadt, and you're like, okay.
And there was no
so sneaky.
There was no even Luzardo against the Tigers last night. Like you had me, my favorite, and I used all the Darvish. So I used Darvish and Pfaadt in all my lineups. I love Darvish. Texas lineup a little bit watered down. But then you had Nola against Pittsburgh, which was a fine spot. Paxton against San Francisco, which was a fine spot. So I guess analyzing it like you talked about, like the day after, it was just a point per dollar play without other great options to go to. A lot like Steven Matz today.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll be getting to him. But rounding things back here to Jesus Luzardo.
Oh,
you've got
about this game. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So $11,000. He's actually worth it. Detroit has been like a little bit better. Let me look at my Luzardo notes here. So I said my notes here is over his last 7 starts, Luzardo has a 1.48 ERA, a 2.54 FIP, and a 182 batting average against, with 55 strikeouts in 43 innings. The only knock I have against him is at this point when I grabbed this information, the Marlins were just minus 150 favorites. Whoa. So the win is kind of in question, but that's partly because he's going against Skubal. But anything less than a quality start and 8 strikeouts, that's going to be disappointing for Luzardo. The win will be a bonus, but the win is worth like 2.5 strikeouts, depending on which site you're playing on. So it's not the end all be all. But he has a shot for double-digit strikeouts today. So I think we want to go there.
I was going to say, you can never, count on the win ever, because it's just so very much random in baseball, especially like you said, going up against another good pitcher. But the way you put it is right. Like you need 8 Ks and a quality start. I mean, you're not going to expect anyone to ever shut the team out. Man, that's a lot to ask for, to be honest, like on any given start. Like you really want double-digit strikeouts here. And that is, the guy has to be on his game. Like if Luzardo is off a little bit today, which, starters have 10, 15 starts, a year where they're not like they're 100% self. Luzardo probably won't get there at this price tag. I still love him here given the other options, but you're right. Like you need a really good outing from him today.
Yeah, definitely. And otherwise, and that's just to get break even. Right.
For sure. And I will say, one guy I don't hate from the Detroit side, and this is just a kind of commemorative thing, Miguel Cabrera, always good against lefties. He sucks from a DFS perspective now, but he always has power against lefties, and this is his final game in Miami ever, where he came up and was a star.
Good point.
I know you love stuff like that.
It is. I remember when he was still playing third base. So
he was amazing there.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Would you go to Tariq Skubal at all as a differentiation play? He's starting to ramp up a little more. I would say 80, 85 pitches is what I would expect from him today.
So this is one thing about the tools. Like for me, at least, I don't use anything as gospel. Like, I look at a lot of different things. Our tools have Skubal so low. After I saw that, I kind of crossed him off. I was really interested in him here because, facing, Luzardo in the same game environment, he's also really good coming off a great start. But our projections and our top two pitcher tools have him much lower than I expected. Like I talked about earlier, lower than AJ Smith-Shawver. That in itself has me off of him and probably just either spending up a little bit more for Verlander or down a little bit on Maeda. I don't love either of them, but I use the tools, right? The tools are telling me Skubal's not a great play.
It's so funny how when you countermand the tools, so often you end up being wrong. Similarly to you're like, I'm not going to put this guy in my stack, and then he's the guy who hits the home run, right?
Exactly. I mean, the tools are the tools, right? You can't pick and choose what you want to use. Like you can, you have to know the nuance in them and decipher between what you want to use and what you don't want to use. But if something is so clearly telling you that this guy's not play today, like doesn't mean he can't succeed, but given the other options, even he just I can't believe that he's below Smith-Shawver, Kopech, Brandon Belak. I mean, it's Christopher Sanchez. It's hard to justify using him given that.
Yeah, I kind of land there as well. Anything else from this game other than you got a cheap Avi Garcia batting fifth to 2,300? Yeah. That's gonna help you get Luzardo and a Brave or two.
One thing about, I guess, the opposite side of that, the inverse, I guess, Skubal's so low, that means Miami must, have a decent shot of getting to him a little bit. Their offense isn't great. I think it's probably a little bit better than people give them credit for. They've got some bats against righties. You mentioned Avi Garcia back in there after missing a ton of time. I don't mind using a couple, one-offs against Skubal, kind of liking them to Pittsburgh against Sanchez in that I don't like the full stack, but they've got guys who can hit home runs, so I don't mind picking a piece or two.
All righty, let's go on to the next game. In the meantime, hit that like button. We're over 600 people. We don't have 150 likes yet. Come on. We'll give you a home run call if we get up to 150. To wet your whistle, the first one was Christian Yelich. On to our next game here, we have Trevor Williams going against the Mets here. The Mets in sell mode. Who knew the team with the highest payroll in baseball, the highest payroll ever in baseball, would go into sell mode because they are the LOL Mets. But you've got some nice options here. Williams just gives up home runs. The only reason his numbers look semi-palatable is he doesn't usually go 5 innings. So it's a very odd situation here. But I think you can go to the Mets up and down the order from Nimmo, all the way to Omar Narvaez, the lefty catcher with power there, and then everybody in between. A couple former Mariners there in Narvaez and Vogelbach. It's a fun spot there. On the other side, we got Justin Verlander, who I capped him at I think 30%, and I ended up hitting my pitching cap with him. I was a little surprised that happened, but I'm guessing it's a function of he's just cheap enough from Luzardo that his point per dollar looks good to the optimizer. If you were targeting against Justin Verlander, is there anybody that scares you from the Nationals today?
No. It's baseball, so anything can happen, but I think there's a lot of bad pitching today. And I think the only if the Nationals succeed here, maybe they get to Verlander, score 5 runs. I don't see them. They're just not a team with a ton
I don't
of
even
power.
know who would get it. Okay, yeah, Meneses gets lucky and runs into one. CJ Abrams somehow gets a double, steals a base, and makes a great defensive play that we don't get points for. I don't see how the Nationals get there today.
Verlander's always been prone to lefty power, but from the Nationals, I mean, Luis Garcia, I mean, I guess, but Hebert Ruiz, no thing. There's no one on the Nationals that really stands out. And that's like with me not even loving Verlander here. Talked about how the Nationals don't strike out. I strongly prefer Luzardo if I'm choosing between the two. But on DK, you got to use two pitchers. And if you can make it work, I think Verlander after Luzardo are the top two pitchers on the slate. If you're pairing them together, you're definitely not stacking the Braves. I mean, that's when like even the bottom half of the Braves lineup now that they're not expensive, but they're all like 4K-ish. Like you're going to have a hard time even stacking that. So you got to like some cheap stacks. Talked about Philly. They got a couple really cheap guys in their lineup. So that was one reason I was on them a little bit. Chicago, the Cubs has some cheap guys. We'll get there. There are cheap bats, but you're definitely like sacrificing the best offense on the slate. I mean, along with other offenses, but the Braves are the big one.
Alrighty. What's your Met stack? How are you? I mean, Vogelbach at 2,200.
You talked about it. I mean,
am I somehow on FanDuel pricing? It's 2,200. Yes, pinch hit risk, but whatever. The Nationals don't exactly have great lefty relievers. So
that's what I was going to say. Like,
he's a pinch running risk though. That we forget about that. When he's out on first base and there's one out, they're going to pinch run him because they need to score, and we see it all too often. And it's a shame for all-star Daniel Vogelbach, but
that's more than made up for in that price tag. Yeah. He probably wouldn't hit in a lefty late, but you're like you said. I mean, who in the Nationals bullpen are we afraid of them bringing in? Also, if you're stacking the Mets, you expect them to get to Williams. Like if they're on a lefty reliever and they haven't, done enough for your stack, they're probably not going to do enough. So they need to get to Williams here, and their stack looks good because they've got some cheap pieces. They've got guys with power. They look really good here. I see nothing wrong with them.
Yeah, the two lefties in the bullpen is Jose A. Ferrer, and he threw 4 pitches on Thursday, and then Joe Lasorsa, and he threw 7 pitches on Wednesday. They don't use these guys
and I would say like these guys aren't good, so it doesn't even matter. But he won't even hit against a lefty, so it doesn't matter how good or not good they are.
All righty. Shall we continue on to the next one? Tampa Bay. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just said.
Tampa Bay at Houston. Couple shaky pitchers here. Are you looking for the offenses? Looks like a Tampa Bay bullpen day. I didn't see if they had a bulk guy in, but I don't think Zach Liddell is stretched out. I need to go pull that up. What are you looking at here? I mean, Bielak is okay, but I don't want to play him against Tampa Bay.
Same. I was surprised he was, creeping towards the top of that top pitchers tool. Like you said, he's okay. I think we view him similarly. He's not getting any ownership, which is interesting because
his ownership's like his strikeouts. Not gonna happen.
that's what worries me. Tampa, they've been disappointing. I mean, since they started off really, really hot to start the season, they've been meddling around 500 for a while now. That said, they've got power in their lineup. Bielak lets guys put the bat on ball. Tampa looks good here. I mean, Houston looks good. I don't love targeting bullpen games. Weird situation last night where they brought in their catcher Pinto to pitch the 8th, and then brought in an actual pitcher, Jake Diekman.
Yeah, gave up 5 runs.
So, yeah, Houston went nuts at the end of that game. They also were very low owned. They're expensive. I don't hate either offense in this game. If I were getting to one, it'd probably be Tampa. Top Stack Tool has these teams very similarly, right next to each other, with Tampa having a 6.8% chance to be in the top stack, Houston 5.7. Tampa ownership is about doubled. That's because Houston's even more expensive than Tampa. Both these teams are expensive. Houston is not quite Braves pricing, but like that next tier down.
All right. If you were give us your stacks from each team, who would you build? Which 3 players are you building around?
Wander Franco, I think, is the best hitter in this game. So I think he'd be my top guy, massive power, speed, upside. From the Houston side, Oh, I mean, if all of them are good, Alvarez, Altuve, Bregman, Tucker, their lineup's really, really good now that they're fully healthy. So, I think they're both teams look pretty good as full stacks, to be honest.
All righty. We're going to continue on to the next one. We've got another good pitching option here. Kenta Maeda, 8,500 on DK. Looks good as SP1 or SP2. The only knock against this game is it's going to be warm. Temperatures approaching 90s with high humidity. Slight breeze coming in from right field, but Kauffman Stadium turns into a home run park when we get warm weather. Fortunately, the wind is not blowing out, but still, it's a little dicey there for just the possibility for a blow up situation. If we look at Maeda, let's see, he was out with a bit of an injury, but his last 6 starts since returning, he has a 2.5 ERA, 2.8 FIP, a 209 batting average against, 12.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. Love him. He really only has to deal with Salvador Perez, Bobby Witt Jr., and MJ Melendez. The back half of this lineup is just a disaster. I would play Maeda, and I think it'd be between Luzardo and Verlander for my 2 cash game pitchers.
So you like Maeda like as your top guy?
Yeah.
I get it. I think those 3 guys are the top 3 pitchers on the slate. Maeda's in good form right now. There's nothing I can really say against Maeda. KC is hot. They've been pretty good this entire series, put up a bunch of runs. We don't really care about that. Worth noting, though. I mean, not that it means anything, but it's worth noting that they've been swinging the bat decently this past couple games. I view Maeda third. Like you view him first, given the price. I view him third because I like Luzardo that much. And then the price difference between Maeda and Verlander isn't enough for me to like Maeda more, even though I think they're really, really close. Like the difference between Maeda and Verlander is almost half as much as Luzardo's to Verlander. So, I think that I would just rather get up to Verlander with Luzardo being my top guy, but I completely get it. I think after Maeda is the drop down for me. Like those 3 guys are the clear top 3 pitchers on the slate.
How are you feeling about going against Ryan Yarbrough? He's getting up there, the well-traveled journeyman, the lefty. We've got Byron Buxton, Donovan Solano, a scuffling Carlos Correa. Can you only imagine if Correa ended up not having that deal voided and he was on the Mets this year?
Which deal?
The deal with the Mets, or when they signed him.
What about the Giants one, though?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I was thinking about that yesterday. I'm like, damn, exactly what you're saying. I'm like, could you imagine if you were on the Mets? And then I said, what about the Giants, too?
I forgot about that. Yeah, it's just like, I mean, he's batting like 230 or something. It's not.
He's been awful.
I know. Ancient statistics, that old batting average category, but that's pretty bad on this.
Still means something.
Yeah, here's your cheapies. Donovan Solano, 2,600 on DK. Kyle Farmer batting cleanup, 2,500. Both those guys have multi-position eligibility. Those guys, I think, go in your cash games if you're on DK, if you're playing Luzardo and Maeda. So that's the value I'm seeing there. You've got Michael. Am I on FanDuel? This is killing me. Michael A. Taylor, 2,200. I don't know. The DK pricing algorithm, is Michael A. Taylor really only 1/3 of the price of Ronald Acuna?
That's crazy, right?
It's kind of bizarre that, but here, that's where we are. It's a full $4,000 player difference, and probably justified between the 2 of these guys. What are you thinking here with the Twins?
I think the Twins look good here. They seem to always let down, so I never get too excited about them. They're so cheap, though. So I think a lot of people that are going to spend up on pitching are going to use the Twins. Not where I'm going to go because the ownership's there already. The ownership is pretty flat today, though, so it's not like I have a problem with them. They look good here. Yarbrough isn't great. I don't think he's bad either, though. And he's been better since he came off the IL. Like, this is a guy in Tampa who it's not like you were ever going out of your way to pick on Yarbrough. Like, he's fine. I know the weather's hot in KC, so it kind of minimizes the big ballpark. I understand why Minnesota's getting love, just not my priority today. How about you?
I'm getting them as secondary stacks. But it's only because they're so cheap. It's only because Farmer and Solano are cheap and they're batting in the top 4. That's all.
Yeah, those guys look good. They're cheap. You can fill out stacks with them. And I do like Buxton a lot. He's one of the guys that's more expensive. Bumped up to the 3-hole today after I think he hit 3 doubles yesterday or 2 doubles and a single.
Wasn't he batting 6th for a minute?
Yeah, for a while.
I remember that correctly. I've looked at a lot of box scores this summer, but
he's had such a weird career arc. Very, very weird. Coming in as a top prospect, then really struggling, then being amazing, but not being able to stay healthy. He's still got massive upside, so he's got power and speed. I like him here. It's not like I'm afraid to use guys against Yarborough. It's just not something I like need to do, especially when the ownership's already there.
All righty. We are needing to get to 200 likes. 200 likes because that will get you the stack of the day. So let's get there. That's like a 200 ISO, 200 likes. That's we're starting to look for something elite because I'm going to do reads until we get there. So this is all up to you, chat. We're 50 away. Almost 650 people watching. This is up to you. But we are sponsored today by BetMGM. I want to let you know that by signing up with our link in the YouTube description below us or by using the promo code PLATINUMSUB, you can sign up to BetMGM, create your account, make a deposit, make a $10 wager, and as soon as that wager settles, they're going to give you a promo code that will get you 30 days of Stochastic Premium. That is amazing. They also will give you bet insurance or bet back dollars on your first bet if it loses, up to $1,000. So let's say you do that $10 wager and you lose. They're going to give you a $10 bet credit. You have a week to use it. Let's say you do it for 100. They're going to give you 5 $20 bet credits if you lose, and you have a week to use them all the way up to 1,000. So pretty sweet deal there. But $10, you're going to get 2 chances to win your bet, and you're going to get 30 days of Stochastic Premium. You're crazy not to do this. Reminder that the legal age for gambling in most states is 21 or older. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. But check this out. It's a lot of fun over there on BetMGM. And they do fun promos all the time through their site, giving you little boosters or special deals, etc. So I enjoy BetMGM. I'm just sad that right now I'm in Florida. And Florida technically sort of sounds like they might allow sports wagering by football season. We'll see. Some conflicting arguments there, and I don't really care that much about Florida, but I'm moving here, so here we go.
When are you moving there?
1 foot in Florida, 1 foot in Virginia for probably the next year and a half, and then I will be here.
Nice. I love Florida personally. My family spends a lot of time there.
I had never really been until we bought a place, and here we are. So. Good times. We have a couple friends.
It's so hot in the summer.
It's beastly. I already did my 5-mile walk today. It's me and the dog. My wife drove down to Miami because one of her childhood friend's daughter is graduating college, so they're doing a big party for that. So I'm here with the dog, and she reminded me that we had some Blue Moon in the fridge from Memorial Day when we were down here. And I thought there were only 2 left. There were 4. So the only question is, do I have a nap before I have the Blue Moons? Or do I have a nap after I have the Blue Moons? But I've got 4 beers today. Woo! Party time.
It's like that why not both emoji or meme. And I will say, you're speaking my love language because I don't drink much beer, but Blue Moon is easily my favorite beer.
So there we are. I like Guinness as beers as you get old, or as I've gotten older. Beer's not as friendly with me anymore. But I really like Guinness, and that I can drink. But I have 2 beers and I'm good. So
I get it.
Over under on me finishing 2.5. I think is. I'll try for 3 today. I don't think I'll get to that 4th. But excitement. All right. Did we get up to 200 likes? No, we did not. So we're going to talk about the lineup generator next, because that is a great tool that we have here. We'll demonstrate what that looks like in just a moment. But in the meantime, I want to remind you, we do have the promo code for that. The promo code is SCORE. You get 50% off your first week, and then it's $8.95 after that. The link for that is again in the YouTube description here, but the lineup generator is awesome. We have it for multiple sports. Baseball, it's really fun. You can build out your stack. So it's set up for the main slate on either DraftKings or FanDuel. You can choose your stack types, 4-4, 4-3, 4-2-2 on FanDuel. DraftKings, you can do 5-0, 5-3, or 4-4. You can choose if you want a chalky build, contrarian build, etc. It's a good time. You can lock in pitcher, you can lock in a hitter, and you can swap players out relatively easily. It's a lot of fun. And we will be showing you that shortly, and maybe right now, unless we get up to 200. Oh, nice! We're only 199 likes. Let's get there. Let's get there. Don't be the one that makes me do yet another read. And behind the scenes, CEO Tom is laughing maniacally. He's like, "Oh, EMac, when you do these things, it makes me happy." So, all right, back to baseball. Just 2 games left. We still have 20 minutes until lock here. We are moving into your team. We've got the Guardians in Chicago. Aaron Savale, solid pitcher. I think we're a little light on this DK projections. I bumped him up to 15.5 DK points. I think we had him at 13 something. So I wanted to get a little bit of him in this matchup. I have no desire to go to Michael Kopech today. In fact, I wrote up the Guardians as a recommended stack. Sadly, Bo Naylor not in the lineup. He was going to be my differentiation play. Everybody's going to land on the top 4 in Cleveland. You do have a decision point between Josh Naylor and Josh Bell, the switch hitter. Both are first base eligible. So at FanDuel, you can play them both. DK, you got to pick one of them. So I figure the top 4 is going to be very popular. So don't do that top 4 and Luzardo unless you're going way off the board with your secondary stack, because that's where how a lot of people are going to build this out. But no love for Kopech here at all. His walks are abysmal, and his let's see, this season he is allowing 5.4 walks per 9 innings. That's nuts. That's like more than one every other inning. That's horrible. 22 home runs do not pair well with all those walks. He's also allowed 19 stolen bases. So that, of course, has Stephen Kwan somewhat in play, not running as much as I'd like to see, but he has been hitting well out of the break. What do you like here for your Guardians?
There's a lot to like here from Cleveland. My biggest problem with Cleveland, I'll start with that first. They're a tough team for me to get to when they're pulling ownership, kind of like the Twins, even more so than the Twins, though, because they don't have a ton of power. Aside from Jose Ramirez, this is kind of one of those where, the unstoppable force meets the immovable object, because Kopech loves giving up home runs. This is a great spot for Cleveland. Nice home run ballpark. They've got lefties up and down the lineup. Guy Oscar Gonzalez not hitting lefty. He's a righty, but he's really cheap. They've got cheap guys to balance out the more expensive guys. I understand Cleveland as a stack. They remind me a lot of Minnesota. Just in that the ownership's there, similar chances of success here. There's not a lot to not like on paper, except for the ownership already being there. But it does set up as a good spot for them against Kopech, who has been extremely hit or miss. I mean, that's the other, I guess, downside with them is if you see Kopech be on today, we've seen multiple starts from him this year where he just doesn't allow anything. So it's another risk in taking Cleveland. Not where I'm going to go, but it doesn't mean I don't like him.
How are you feeling about Savale? He doesn't quite have enough strikeouts to get there from a fantasy perspective. Good pitcher, but more real life baseball pitcher.
Yeah, solid pitcher. I think Cleveland should deal him. They'll never get more of a return for him than they would right now. And like you said, he's fine. He's not a guy like I'm scared to pick bats against, but he's also not a guy like that I want to pick on. Chicago's pretty low in our top stack tool. No Eloy Jimenez today in their lineup. I like Chicago much more against lefties than I do righties, and I think Savale should probably pitch fine here. I don't think he's an awful pivot off of like the Maeda chalk. That said, I think on paper Maeda's a much better play. So I'm not going to be getting to much of this game. Cleveland offense is the top side by far, in my opinion.
All right, that takes us to our last game. How the hell is Steven Matz getting so much popularity behind him?
Price tag.
I just built out some Cub stacks.
Yeah, I like the Cubs here too, given that ownership especially.
What's the worst case scenario?
Well, I was going to say Matt's just pitched really well against the Cubs, which doesn't make me not like the Cubs at all. I mean, it doesn't mean anything to me, but I think people will look at that and be like, wow, he's 5,800. He's, had 20 plus DK points or whatever it is in 3 out of his past 4, one of which being against this Cubs lineup. The worst case scenario for Matt's, though, is he walks guys and he gives up power. His Cubs lineup is decent. Like, I like the Cubs here, from an ownership perspective. I think their chances of success, like you're always going to, the pitcher always has a much better chance of success because hitting's really hard. Well, so is pitching, but you get what I'm saying. But like given their ownership, I think it's very skewed. The only reason Matt is getting a lot of love is because of his price tag, not because he's some great pitcher. I love picking on pitchers like that because, like I said, he's only getting a lot of love because his price tag, not because he's really good. He's not a gas can, but these are the spots I like to pick on. Similar to, Philly against Rich Hill, although to a lesser extent because Matt is getting a lot more ownership.
So is Kyle Hendricks good or not good?
This is another one. I like both offenses in this game. I like St. Louis here. Hot in St. Louis. Another offense I usually prefer against lefties, but they've got guys healthy now. Lars Nootbaar back, swinging a hot bat right now. Tyler O'Neill back. Some of these guys have really good numbers against Hendricks if you're into that stuff. So I like St. Louis here as kind of a last shebang before they probably unload a ton at the deadline.
You know who had awesome BVP numbers yesterday? Pete Alonso. You know who got Bupkis yesterday? Pete Alonso. Just saying.
Yeah, I saw that and heard you reference it. The Mets overall had very good numbers against Corbin.
They did.
But it's still baseball, and even in those good numbers, like that's the funny part about baseball. I know Alonso had like 5 home runs, was hitting whatever 3. Let's just say he was hitting 350 against him. 6.5 times out of 10, he's getting out. So,
sometimes we have to be rational.
Yeah,
sometimes we have to be rational. Anything else you want to mention from this game?
Can't think of anything, no.
All right. I will get the lineup generator up so we can show that in action. But who is your top? Give us your top 3 stacks.
Oh, man. So my top 3, I'll answer this in 2 different ways because we have a little bit of time. I think in terms of like chances to succeed, it's Atlanta and no one close to them. They're the best offense in baseball. You usually don't see this that often where like one team, especially not in a core slate, like you're looking at them and like, man, it's tough to fade Atlanta on a daily basis now. Like it just is given their lineup, the pitching they're facing. They're the top stack by far. Then I think you have a cluster of Minnesota, Milwaukee, Cleveland that all look good with the Phillies and the Mets right behind them. For me personally, I like that Philly stack a lot because they're not getting as much love as any of the other teams. I like Tampa, and I like both sides of the Cubs game. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and just say that game.
All righty, let's talk a little line. Think about your home run calls. So Yelich, Joey Votto this afternoon, and then Anthony Santander. I got to go with him on a Sunday because he hits home runs on Sundays, and it's ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. There's your 3, 1 for each of the slates today.
Love it. Yeah, I'll go after you show this.
All righty, so we've got the lineup generator here. Let's do FanDuel today for fun because we have not done FanDuel for a while. So it's for each of the main slates. You can choose your stack type here. Let's go with 4-4. You can choose your lineup type here. FanDuel, let's go all lineups because, hey, you get a variety of salary cap stuff that should have things moving around for you. You can see that Luzardo is not quite as popular on FanDuel. He's $11,000. We're going to lock him in as we build this. So what this is going to do is it's going to build out some 4-4 stacks. Oh, I didn't realize that Coors Field is on the FanDuel slate. Here's the analysis for Coors Field. Play them. Play a lot of them. There you go. But you can see here that even though we've built out a lineup, there are several people here that are less than 5% or less than 7%. That's some good differentiation. I like that one. Let's save it. We can build out a whole bunch of lineups here. You can save up to 20 and then export them out. Let's say I'm tired of having Luzardo in my lineup and I want to put in Justin Verlander. I can do that, and we will build lineups with him. But you see I've left a lot of salary on the table with that change, so you can quickly come in, choose somebody else, and get to where you need to go. If you find that otherwise perfect lineup, you can maneuver some stuff around here. It's a lot of fun to play with the lineup generator. For those of you that are just building 10, 20, 30 lineups, you're only playing 10, 15, 20 bucks a day. This is the perfect tool because it's not expensive. We tried to make something that was a low cost point for everybody, and promo code SCORE gets you 50% off your first week. But what this does is it eliminates bad lineups. So it's putting out lineups thinking about all of the correlation, all of the ownership, all of the stack probability, and all of the simulations, right? That the simulation tool is doing. This is doing very similar things behind the scenes, but you can build out your lineups, choose what you want, and they're going to be good lineups. Are they going to win? Well, there's no guarantee to have winning lineups, but this is taking the crappy lineups that you build, even if you don't think you're building bad lineups. I know I do, especially when I'm building out 150, but I'd probably, I do what I can to get rid of the bottom 10% of those lineups, but there's still some marginal plays in there. This takes care of that for you and eliminates a lot of those issues. So you can see that you can look at your exposures here. So obviously we locked in Luzardo for part of that, but he's one of the more popular, or he's one of the more better point per dollar plays. You can look at stack exposure here to see where this is. You can see we have, more than 100 because we were doing double stacks of these teams, but we can see Minnesota and Oakland and Colorado are the popular ones. That makes a lot of sense because it is FanDuel over there. So that is kind of how the lineup generator works. You hit export to CSV, it'll drop out your 20 lineups. You can copy that into your lineup template from FanDuel. You can clear it out, and then you can build more lineups. So if you want to build more than 20, not a problem. It just lets you keep 20 at a time here. So that's the fun with the lineup generator. Do we worry about dupes? No, we don't, because we have this set up so it should not have a lot of duplicating issues. So even if Matt and I locked in Luzardo and locked in chalky stacks and did 4-4s, we could hit this probably 300-400 times and still never have the exact same lineup.
I don't think people realize how many different variations there are possible to make in lineups. Literally, I don't know the number, but duping in MLB is never something I've ever been worried about, even when you're using a generator like this, because there's so many different combinations, especially, even if you use the entire salary, there's infinite amount of combinations. Imagine, not having to use the entire salary, which you don't have to. So I don't think that's ever something you should be worried about. In NBA, like you talked about, cash games or, even tournaments on a small slate with, everything, how projectable it is. I see that, but MLB is just a different beast.
I see my grandson is in chat. Hello there, Notorious Fantasy. What's up? We've got 5 minutes till lock or so. We did a good job on the show. We reminded you guys that you could get 30 days of Stochastic via the Avatar promo. That's stochastic.com/avatar. Another 30 days if you sign up with our promo code Platinum Sub, or go through the links on our site to sign up at BetMGM. Make your first $10 wager. You'll get a promo code for 33 days of Stochastic Premium, as well as bet insurance on your first bet. If you lose, so pretty good deal. And then we got the lineup generator out there as well. So promo code on that is SCORE, 50% off your first week, $8.95 per week after that. I used it, the golf version, to build out my 7 Millie Maker lineups that I won a bunch of tickets for the Open a couple weeks ago, or I guess last weekend. Did not win the $1 million, but it made lineup building a lot easier because I don't understand golf very well. So there we go. What are you?
I was going to say, have you started looking at the NFL pricing yet? I know that got released.
Oh, did it? I haven't, but I've been doing best ball drafts.
Okay.
I've got about 50 $10 tickets on DK, so I've been firing off a few slow drafts every day. Although I started mathing it out because I know at some point they turn the clock really quick, so I think I'm only going to enter for about another week, maybe 10 more days. But once you get some of these drafts take like 20 days because of the 8-hour clock. But what happens is when you get towards the end, they just do 5-minute clock and just everything is going crazy at once to finish all the drafts. I don't want to have 20 drafts open. It's a disaster when you do that. So I will start doing more live drafts going forward instead of the slow drafts. But it's very convenient now because I have 20 going at any given time. And as soon as one or two finishes, I add a couple more. And I'm at the point where I've got, 3 weeks worth of drafts going on. So I'm always starting one and always watching one in. But yes. What do you got for football? I haven't really thought about week 1. I'm too worried about my stacking correlations in this ridiculous best ball streets that we have now.
Yeah, I'm not in those streets, so I've kind of separated myself from that. Week 1 seems still like so far away, even though it's approaching. I'll say 2 things that stand out to me, and then we can go. The Chargers-Dolphins game stands out like a sore thumb. Is like you want a ton of that because both offenses are potent with playmakers all over. And then I'm not just being a homer here because I'm obviously a big Cleveland fan, but I'm not a delusional Browns fan that thinks they're always going to be good. I really am excited to see Watson this year. He's cheap. I really like the Elijah Moore connection. Watson's like 6,400 and Moore's 3,800. Just throwing that out there. I think Watson he was an elite quarterback last time he, taken last year aside. I'm excited for him. You can take the off the field stuff, whatever you want with it. I'm not even going to speak on that. I'm just talking about his on the field production.
All righty. Well, with that, we are going to get on out of here. You can follow Matt over on Twitter at Fantasy Tips Matt. I am at EMac DFS. It is stochastic_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.